Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Kerry-Ann Friends, the Caribbean American Experience. And I'm excited, always excited to have my next guest on the podcast, Simone. Welcome to Kerry-Ann Friends. How are you?
I am well. It's such a pleasure to join you, Kerry-Ann, on the show. I've been watching you on the sidelines and hearing great things about you. So I'm so glad that we finally are connecting. So thanks for having me.
I am excited that we're connecting because you cover something that aligns with the show. I just talked about my Caribbean Diaspora experience model, and I really would love for the audience to just get into this conversation as we dive deeper into what you call third person or third culture people or persons, and we're going to get all into that. But before we do that, see, I'm so excited. I'm getting ahead of myself in the conversation. Why don't you tell the community of friends a little bit about who you are, Caribbean country you represent, and the work that you do?
Sure, happy to share. So I am originally from Jamaica, right? Yadi yadi, 400%.
And we would say boop boop.
Yes, 100% Yadi. But I've been here now for over 2 decades, and now longer than I was in Jamaica, the land of my birth, right? And so, boy, it has been a journey, and I had to start the podcast and everything I've done since. But currently, I do so many things, right? So I have a full-time job in the public service. Right. So I do my full-time job. I went to work rose at 5 a.m. this morning, went to work, got there at 6 o'clock, left at 2:30, picked up the daughter from summer camp. We went to get our smoothies from Smoothie King. I got home. She's in the room watching her little monster dance show, and I'm here on the podcast at 6 o'clock. So I'm a busy woman, a busy working mother. But on the side, outside of my full-time job, my own life experience pulls me into this world of what happened to me after I left my birth country. Oh my gosh, I have changed in so many ways, and so much richer. Life is so much richer, right? I had no idea what the experience I was about to go on, but these days I go by author of the book Decoding America, the Immigrant Experience, where I talk about, what is this new place I'm living in, and how do you understand these people? Why do they behave this way? They don't sound like me. I can't fit in with them a lot of times, and it's nerve-wracking trying to figure out this place, right? What is American? So I talk about all that in my book, and then I'm a podcaster, right, of the podcast called The Immigrant Experience in America, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants living around the world, right? We now have over 180 episodes. We've interviewed people from around the world talking about, why did they leave their countries? What were the challenges and successes over the years? And, all of the things that goes along with adjustment challenges that comes when you leave your birth country. And I have a course and offer coaching to people who are going through the thick of culture shock, loss of cultural self. You don't feel like yourself no more. You can't really put your finger on it. In fact, you don't even have the words to explain, what am I going through? Why do I don't feel like myself anymore. In fact, the research says that culture shock, the symptoms range from mild depression to fatal self-harm. It's that serious. And I have personally heard of stories of people who have fatally harmed themselves. So take it seriously, folks. This is why I have put so much of my personal time in really finding the research. I talk about it in my book. We know the challenges are real. And sometimes you might think that, okay, I'm living in a new place, I'm trying to assimilate and it's not working, but oftentimes it's deeper than that. It's important. My message is it's important for you to come home to yourself. A lot of people, when they move abroad, they feel like they have to give up everything and every part of who they were. And you can't, how do you throw out 10, 15, 20 plus years of your life and just start anew? You just simply can't. It's very deeply a part of who you are. And so until you embrace that fully and come home to who you are, and you then are able to create something amazing, which I call your superpower, right? It is a superpower to be a third culture person, to be a hybrid of your old country and the new country. And there's so much power within that space. And I'm really encouraging people to embrace it and see what it does for you in your life.
Wonderful. So, are you focused mostly on adult people who migrated in their adult age? Because there's a difference migrating as a child, which is, 17 and under, versus 18 and over. Is that where you mostly focus on the work that you do?
Not necessarily. I'm starting there, right?
Mhm.
That because that's I'm an adult, an older adult, right? But I do know for third culture kids, it's a whole other experience, right?
Right.
Some people come when they're 5 or they're 8 or even younger, and or even they might be born in the US or any other Western country, such as my daughter. And at home, there's a completely different world, a completely different culture. But when they go to school and with their friends, they're in the local culture wherever they're born, whether it's Germany, the US, UK, Canada. And so oftentimes there's a lot of clashes that comes in with, as they get older, what culture am I? Who am I going to be? Am
Mhm.
I going to be American? Am I going to be Canadian? Am I Jamaican? Am I a blend of? My daughter's 6 and she's already having those conversations with me. So I find that I can support both, but I've niched down to really zone in on the pain points of working professional parents, because it's real. The struggle is real. Raising children in a culture that is so different from the one that you were born and raised in. You're now working with so much less support than you had back in your home country. And plus the clashes that comes with the pressure to support your community and your family of origin, plus balance your personal life while you're a working professional, raising children in a new country, you're a spouse, managing work challenges and pressures, and self-care and your own personal aspirations and figuring it all out. It's very complex. And so I start there, but I understand that in the middle of that, I can also support first generation Americans or first generation third culture children who are children of immigrants and are in the thick of trying to make sense of who am I, who will I become? Will my parents feel disappointed if I choose to be totally American and totally assimilate into this culture? I just want to fit in. I don't want to straddle the fence. I just want to be a kid. And I get that. So I'm here for the gamut of people, but I'm just starting with the adults because hey, I can relate to them more
Yeah.
easily.
That makes so sense. So, audience, this is why Simone is on, because the work she's doing has so much synergy with CDEM, the Caribbean Diaspora Experience model. Because I've come through most of the model, or my brother and I. So you have adults, you have those who are like late teenagers, then you have the younger ones, you have those who are born in the diaspora and connected to culture, and those who aren't connected to culture. Because I've seen how that works, and you are right. Everyone, particularly the kids that who are born in the diaspora, they go through this feeling of am I not? Which one do I consider? And you and I, obviously, we are like, you have a right to choose, but you're not either or. You are both. You are this and this and this, if you choose to want to embrace that. Now, let's go back to you. You started the podcast. You've been here 22 decades, right? I have 3 decades here. And so at what point did you say, aha, I should start this podcast to have this conversation. Why did you call it Third Culture Persons?
Well, you know what? It was in the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I had been going through years of just disorientation, just not feeling like myself, not as confident. I remember when I first arrived, I was this bright eyed, energetic. I was ready to take on the world. And, when I came up against the discrimination and the racism and all that, I didn't even have the words because this is not stuff we talk about in Jamaica, right? So it was a learning curve for me. And for years, I would just brush it off and just say, oh, that's just a nasty person and just go on my way. And in fact, some of my friends say that, oh, we're just so amazed how far you've gone or how much you've accomplished since you've been here. And I think it's because partly I didn't carry that weight of people didn't like me because of my skin color, because I just didn't understand. I didn't have that complex, right? It wasn't inside of me. I was just oblivious, naive, very naive to some of the environments and people that I were among and didn't realize what I was dealing with. And so the microaggressions in the office and not understanding why you feel microaggressions before you can actually decode it. You just know something does not feel right in your body. And I was having all of these experiences, and over time it just kept eroding, slowly eroding who I was, eroding my confidence, eroding just who I was, my identity. I wasn't quite fitting in with the I don't really like to identify by my skin color, and people might find it weird. I prefer to say I'm Afro-Caribbean, I'm Jamaican American, because I feel like when you use nationality, it says more about who you are, how I was raised, how I eat. It tells someone so much more definitively about how to relate to me. If you just say I'm a Black person, but what does that mean? If you say you're white, it doesn't really mean much. It's a social construct. So for me, I was going through this internal turmoil of who am I now? What's my identity? Who's my group? And frankly, was very disheartened that people who looked like me at work just didn't pull me in. They didn't clue me into the cultural dynamics in the office, the politicals, which I was on my own for so long. And it was so painful. It was so painful. And in the middle of COVID, I was going through another work situation and just trying to not understanding, why am I not clicking? I'm just being myself and being told that I'm acting white, being told that I'm not Black enough, being told or being treated like I'm a threat to everybody's job because of my resume. I worked hard, I did the work, and everybody sees me as a threat. I'm here as an immigrant hyphenated American to take their jobs, or they feel like I'm going to have a foot in the door over them. And so people were just hostile towards me, just nasty. I actually have expressed to one of these persons that I am traumatized, and I'm trying to work through the trauma of looking at people who look like me and not being accepted just because I have a different accent in the way I express differently. I show up differently. I have different credentials. I'm from another place. And I've traveled around the world, several different countries. I never really experienced that until here in the US, right? So it was so confusing for me. It was such a disorientation. And it took my mom passing January 1, 2021, that just pushed me out, because I wanted to do it in 2015. And I was so scared. I was like, man, I can't put my face, my personal story, because, as people from collectivist cultures, we're very private. We don't put our business out there. We don't put our dirty laundry. It was a huge thing for me to put my voice, my story. In fact, when I did my first few interviews, I literally was shaking in my body, like it was just reverberating. It took me many episodes before I got used to hearing myself. And I just wanted to talk to other people. I was like, and it was in the middle of the turmoil of one administration. I don't remember the exact number. And I kept saying, who are they talking about? I'm not one of these immigrants who are coming who is this or that, all these labels. And it was the palpable negative sentiments in the media, in the air was so strong that I was like, I don't know anybody. All the people in my family are hardworking people who are here to contribute and in fact are contributing. And I just felt like I needed to be that space. I needed to step out. I needed to talk to other people to figure out, like, what am I going through? What all this negative narrative? And in fact, would I have come if I were older and knew all of this today? I don't know. I was going through a very personal experience of trying to figure myself out. And I just started talking. And here we are 3 years later. I've learned so much. This whole idea of the third culture person, I came across it through my research, from my book, listening to another podcast and doing some reading on my own. And all I knew at the time was like, you know what? Well, when I go back home to Jamaica, people say, you don't sound the same anymore. As the moment I open my mouth, they know that I have not been on the island for a while. And the price goes up how many times, right? I come here and I don't quite fit in either. And so I felt like I was in this in between. And so the only thoughts I had were, well, I know I'm a hybrid. That's the only way I could explain it. I'm a bit of the old, I'm a bit of the new, and I'm in the in between. And it was through the research that I came across the whole concept of third culture person, third culture kids. And then all of a sudden, it started making sense, the research on culture shock and what I was going through. It's pretty serious, people. But a lot of times people don't have the words to even start talking about what they're feeling or experiencing. So this is my life's work. I really do feel that way.
Yes. So what you spoke about is this awareness of Blackness that most Afro-Caribbeans begin to experience when they come to America, because when you're in the Caribbean, you're just living, right? And it's not until you come here that you are aware that, oh, it's not that you didn't know you were Black, but it's not a thing. It's not made an issue until you come here, you realize. And to your point, it's mostly the adults. I mean, the kids experience it in a different way, but the adjustment is harder for adults because they've spent so much of their life. You spent so much of your life just living in your body, and you being Black wasn't a thing, right? And now you have to wrestle with these things that now you can't even find the words for. Like, why are they so nasty to me? I said good morning. Why did nobody answer me? Like, wait, didn't I just say good morning? And you want to do the Jamaican thing and say, I said good morning, but you can't. So these adjustments. And you talked about the slow erosion, right? Because you're still not fully reconciling that. And I think even with both our respective life's work, what we've recognized is that we've been experiencing things, and the people before us have been experiencing the same things, but didn't have the language to name the thing, right? To say, okay, this is what's happening. And that's important, because the slow erosion of self, and you talked about something that pushed me to start the podcast, which is work. The work environment is rough, on so many levels, right? And it forces you to make a choice, right? That's why in addition to why many Black women start businesses, for us as Afro-Caribbean women, it's even that more where we're like, you know what? I need to do this because work is not working out for me at all. So I want to go back to something that you said. The slow erosion, that sense of not belonging. What do you feel typically is the first thing that people need to pay attention in their bodies? Because you've said it at least multiple times in the 15 minutes we're talking. It presents initially intellectually like, oh, this person is mean or disrespectful. But you started feeling in yourself and your body that, oh, something is not right here. And you couldn't identify. Could you talk to me a little bit more of sometimes the physical symptoms people might feel and dismiss it like, oh, me sick, me need to drink some tea, or me need to get more sleep. That people should be paying attention to when it comes to the adjustment, especially for adults,
Right.
into this new life in America and adjusting to all these different things that they're not used to.
Right. Yeah, so I think looking back, I feel like I was going through depression. The anxiety, I had a lot of anxiety. Sunday night, the thought of getting up and showing up to work the next day. And the fear that would just run through your veins, you can't sleep. That, having to show up to work and deal with the toxic people around you, who are just mean and rude for just no reason, because you and them didn't have any fist fight, right? They just don't like you because it's just how you phenotypically look or show up at work, or they feel like maybe you have a position that should have been theirs or whatever. It's a complex issue, right? The shrinking, wanting to ask a question when you're in a meeting and you have this amazing thought or amazing addition to the meeting, but being afraid of speaking up because you feel like somebody in the room, they may either steal your idea, they may downplay it and then use it for themselves later, and you might not get credit for it, or you just feel like you don't look like one of the people who should be winning, right? And so it's like a place that you need to kind of fall back in the office, like you can't shine. I was used to doing well in school, and so I don't even know how not to shine. I was just a kid. That's the environment that we have in Jamaica. Everybody do well and we all compete. And you say kudos to the guy who make it to be the head boy and the girl who make it to be the head girl, but it's healthy competition. And but finding that you're afraid now to speak up and share, and then you find yourself just shrinking, staying in the shadow, not wanting to go out to the happy hours. And that was one big thing too, because it was so awkward for me because I didn't grow up going to happy hours. Like, what in the world is this whole idea of just going out for a few hours and just getting wasted on liquor? I mean, we grew up having dragon or rum or whatever, a little bit in the carrot juice or sorrel or whatever. It's a regular thing for us growing up. And so when you get to 18, it was no big deal. But for here, I mean, I was a resident assistant at my undergrad, and to see the freshmen on the freshman dorm come in, and as soon as their parents leave, the front of the business building is lined up with people smoking, drinking, wasted, not showing up to class. I'm like,
Simone,
this is not. I don't know what this is. Okay.
Simone, I don't mean to cut you off, but I had another person. So I went on another podcast, talked about this. The host connected me with this other person who said the same thing. I went to college and they have empty beer bottle and liquor bottle line up on the windowsill. And I'm like, what is this? Every Thursday night, everybody get wasted. I'm like, I don't understand why everybody frightened. So it's that culture shock for us because we're like, for liquor? Really? Like, what is this? Right?
Exactly.
Even the college experience, this whole thing, I wear pajama to class. We're like, oh my gosh, what kind of shame and embarrassment this would
Yes.
be coming on us. But again, it's that culture
Yeah.
adjustment. And, at the time, my mother didn't go to college here, so she couldn't have prepared me, for what I was going to see when I walked into college. And so all of those adjustments, they they let you stand out, right? And you said something, a collectivist culture, we compete. And it's interesting how we compete in class, everything you said, but no one really stands out the way that, what happens when we stand out. And because we feel like we stick out like a sore thumb, we shrink back. Because I remember doing that. I did not want to feel like I was outshining people. And I remembered the feelings I got when people felt like I was outshining them. But I'm like, I'm just being regular. I'm not even really trying here. I'm just doing what I
Yes.
know I'm supposed to do. So like everything that you're saying is really resonating with me, of and sometimes some of that residual probably still happens where I'm just like, you may not catch me on social media a lot because I'm just like, yeah, those wounds, they leave deep scars, of like, you look down and you're like, yeah, this is what happened when I did something and someone thought I was trying to upstage them when I was just doing
a regular.
good.
I'm not. I didn't even prepare. Like, you're threatened, and I didn't even prepare. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, what if I put some work into this? But but the thing about it is, at least two people who've told me multiple times, there's 48 laws of power, about not outshining the master.
Mm.
That was not in my consciousness, right? And I still feel like I struggle with it because I show up and I just add the my 2 cents, and all of a sudden everybody thinks, say, I'm coming for them. That was like the last thing on my mind. But when you, I mean, that's mediocrity. People who kind of dwell in mediocrity, and if you have somebody who just comes in the room and they're used to healthy competition and just shining and doing, just your regular best, then all of a sudden everybody feel threatened. I don't know, is it the crab in a barrel or there's this thing called the tall poppy syndrome, in the research that, in collectivist cultures, they don't like when people are too showy, and they call it boastful, or if you're trying to outshine everybody, and so they tend to tear down that one person. But it's here a lot too in the US, interestingly, and you'll find people who will literally hide their talent or behave a certain way just to be part of that in group, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah.
Right, it's pretty sad. I've observed it at work and in other people, but I honestly, I've struggled with just staying quiet, not saying too much, because I'm excited to just contribute and put my energy into things, and it's so you're being taught that you're only to contribute to this much, to keep,
It's
don't rock the boat,
we can't help it. Sometimes I do a good job to shut my mouth, as me say, but there are moments where I'm just like, me can't shut up. Like, Unana sister something like, it's like you see it, like, is me alone seeing this?
Yes,
And
that's right.
you kind of have to say something, and it's just like sometimes you just, I still struggle with that. How much I want to shine, and and I put shine in quotations, is how much I want to just be free in my expression and my thoughts and my intellect, and how much
Yes.
and when I just want to just go in a cage and sit down, like a lioness goes into the cage and sit down and watch everything, or do I want to come out and you know prowl and watch the pride? And I find myself still doing that, because I'm very conscious, and sometimes people don't realize in what they do or how much they do, they to put you, well, at not you, Simone, but it's the little things, because we pick up on those things, right? To them it's nothing, but because we are the outsider, we are sensitive to the little things that they do to make us know that I just did something that you did not like, and now I'm more aware of that, and so now you're kind of navigating spaces. So I just love that you're having this conversation, especially for adults, right? Because there are many resources that you can potentially have for children, right? But dealing with adults and this adjustment, there's not enough resources. And also, adults may not even want to admit that this is an issue for them, right? Because guess what? Generations before was dealing with it and they were fine. So you don't want to be the tall poppy standing out and say, oh, I have a problem settling into America, when
Right.
all these other people came before me, auntie so and so, uncle this, had no problem. So let's talk about belonging, right? Because it's a term that people use, around, like, what does that look like for immigrants? Is there such a thing? Before we had assimilation, are we still assimilating? I don't know if assimilation is the thing that we're doing now. And belonging, like, how are those two words make sense in today's world?
Right, right. So when I first got here, I would hear I would hear accommodation and assimilation. And for the longest time, I kept saying I'm accommodating because I'm not giving up who I am. I mean, how do you expect me to come to the table and erase my entire life
Can't do it.
before this? Exactly. I mean, how do you even begin to do that? I don't know how some people do it.
As long as me born in Jamaica, there's no way you're gonna erase anything Jamaican out of my DNA, my words, my body.
Yeah, but how do you
How
even do that? How it's impossible.
impossible.
Even people who quote unquote are fully assimilated and you can't even tell where they're from or how they sound. That culture is still under there, the roots and the influence from birth. I mean, because that's what you pick up when you're a baby. How do you get rid of that? You don't erase it. So I always have used the word accommodation. Assimilation to me is when you fully, like, you take on the local lingo, the sounds, you just completely kind of give up who you are before, and you keep that to a minimum.
You can't help it. Sometimes I do a good job to shut my mouth, as me say, but there are moments where I'm just like, me can't shut up. Like, una sister something like it's like you see it, like, is me alone seeing this?
Yes,
And
that's right.
you kind of have to say something, and it's just like sometimes you just, it's I still struggle with that. How much I want to shine, and and I put shine in quotations, is how much I want to just be free in my expression and my thoughts and my intellect, and how much
Yes.
and when I just want to just go in a cage and sit down, like a lioness goes into the cage and sit down and watch everything? Or do I want to come out and, prowl and watch the pride? And I find myself still doing that, because I'm very conscious, and sometimes people don't realize in what they do or how much they do, they to put you, well, at not you, Simone, but it's the little things, because we pick up on those things, right? To them it's nothing, but because we are the outsider, we are sensitive to the little things that they do to make us know that I just did something that you did not like, and now I'm more aware of that. And so now you're kind of navigating spaces. So I just love that you're having this conversation, especially for adults, right? Because there are many resources that you can potentially have for children, right? But dealing with adults and this adjustment, there's not enough resources. And also, adults may not even want to admit that this is an issue for them, right? Because guess what? Generations before was dealing with it and they were fine. So you don't want to be the tall poppy standing out and say, oh, I have a problem settling into America, when
Right.
all these other people came before me, auntie so and so, uncle this, had no problem. So let's talk about belonging, right? Because it's a term that people use, around, like, what does that look like for immigrants? Is there such a thing? Before we had assimilation, are we still assimilating? I don't know if assimilation is the thing that we're doing now. And belonging, like, how are those two words make sense in today's world?
Right, right. So when I first got here, I would hear accommodation and assimilation. And for the longest time, I kept saying I'm accommodating because I'm not giving up who I am. I mean, how do you expect me to come to the table and erase my entire life
Can't do it.
before this? Exactly. I mean, how do you even begin to do that? I don't know how some people do it.
As long as me born in Jamaica, there's no way you're gonna erase anything Jamaican out of my DNA, my words, my body.
Yeah, but how do you even do that? How it's impossible.
Impossible.
Even people who quote unquote are fully assimilated and you can't even tell where they're from or how they sound. That culture is still under there, the roots and the influence from birth. I mean, because that's what you pick up when you're a baby. How do you get rid of that? You don't erase it. So I always have used the word accommodation. Assimilation to me is when you fully, like, you take on the local lingo, the sounds, you just completely kind of give up who you are before, and you keep that to a minimum, right? And you just kind of do whatever you need to do to fit in with whatever group you feel like you need to be fitting into. That was never me. I didn't even know how to do it. In fact, it's years down the road that I started even becoming more aware and learning, having the language to have these conversations. So I didn't even know how. And a lot of people don't. They just know how to be themselves. So for me, I like to use the word integration, right? Because it really goes along with becoming a hybrid. It's impossible to live 5, 10, 15, 20 years in a country and don't change, right? Eventually, parts of who you were from your birth country are going to start fading,
Mhm.
and then when you go back home, you don't quite fit in anymore. The subtleties, the nuances, the sort of nonverbal communication that kind of happens in communal cultures. Like in some cultures, they make sounds and people are able to pick up communication, low versus high context levels of communication. And so once you've been out of that for a decade or more, sometimes you lose that. And there's some people who I go back and people will just say things and they just get it. And for me, it'll take me a while to kind of decode what's going on. And so you're always going to be a hybrid or integration of this. And so some people might try to fully assimilate when they go outside of their home, whether it's at work, socially, but people use the code switching. I talked about in my book contextual code switching,
Of
because
course.
I find that there's no way really that you're going to just be consistently this one person in every environment, because you have to kind of adapt yourself. You're not going to walk into a room with a group of quote unquote white males or Indian males or Black males and use the same type of communication. You really have to tailor that to your audience, right?
Simone, when I first heard that it was wrong to code switch, I struggled with that because I disagree. We code switch every day. The way I address my brothers, I would never address my mother the same way, right?
Yes, that's
So
right.
that is a form of code switching because it's based on the audience. The way that I
Yeah.
even the way that I address my grandmother wouldn't be the same way I address my mother, the same way, so it is, I mean, it's unfortunate we had to put the context before it because you code switch based on the context. Also, for me going between the patois and the speaky spokey is a
Yes, yes.
superpower, but also it's relationship, right? Me can talk to you this way, Simone, because by culture we have a sort of relationship, right?
Yes,
It's a
right,
level
right.
of cultural intimacy, right? I'm not going to talk like this to certain people at work because one, they don't get it, but we are not that culturally connected for me to speak to you this way. And so,
Yes.
you know it's the superpower in having this culture. It's a superpower that I'm bilingual. You may not recognize my Jamaican language officially as a separate language, but my bilingual. Try talk it. You can't, so that makes it a language for me, right?
Yes,
But I
yes.
love that you're talking about this contextual code switching, which is what code switching is anyway, is necessary for survival, right?
Yes,
It is
it's
just
true.
how we go about. I won't, I mean, every day, you're not going outside to talk to this, you're in school. Would you talk to the principal or the teacher the same way? You can't do
Right,
that. And we
right.
learned that. It's like me, sound like we went to high school in Jamaica. You must be mad. I talk to the teacher a certain way. You listen.
Yes, miss. Good morning, miss.
First of all, the minute them touch the edge of the classroom, you stand up. Good morning.
Yes,
When they
that's
leave
right.
class, same thing. You get up and address them. I mean, when your classmate comes to the class, you're not standing up and addressing them. So this idea of painting code switching as a bad thing, I don't think it is. It's oftentimes necessary based on the audience for survival, and it just makes sense. We do this all the time. I don't address, it's just yeah. So I'm sorry, I
Yes,
cut
no,
you
me
off.
get it.
One
We're
time.
on the same page. We're up on the same page.
Listen, it just
Um,
rile me up every time we hear it because I'm just like,
yes.
this no make no sense.
Yes, it's true. It's true. As I was reading, but me kind of understand why some people might feel a way about it,
Mm-hmm.
because certain groups have been so silenced And in the workplace and in socially in other spaces, them feel say them constantly have to change themselves to whether whatever dominant culture it is, whatever space you're in, them always feel so them just never can show up and just be who they are. So them feel say, boy, I'm tired for a change. Me I can't me, we go to college, them I teach me some have to behave this way. When is culturally who I am going to be accepted? So I get that conversation. And for those people I have empathy and I get that. But on a larger scale for me, that just didn't make sense because me I say if me can't go to work and speak like this and use certain terms and vibe a certain way when you go giving a presentation in a meeting, people just won't get it. So you really have to tailor yourself and how you communicate, how you present yourself, depending on the audience. And that's how we're saying. Yeah, it's a more global way perspective of looking at the whole addressing your audience, right? And adapting yourself to your audience. So, but we can understand the other side of the conversation too, with the people them who feel like from birth they've lived in such an environment where they're constantly having to just silence and be in the shadows and can't be themselves. And so them tired of it. So me get it. I get that part of the conversation and I can empathize. So
Yeah. How do you guide your clients to navigating this multiple world that they're now living in?
easy. Mental health wise, that's a big thing I'm interested in, right? For a long time, I did Spanish and international affairs in undergrad, and I did international relations in my master's program. And I've kind of always felt like I had a calling to go into either psychology, psychiatry, maybe neuroscience, neuropsych, or clinical psych or something. But because I've always kind of had an eye for the psychology of things, and now I'm into this whole idea of positive psychology because I really do think that on a very deep level we're experiencing so much and not really even know how to manage it and how it's affecting us first internally, and how then do you make sense of your own personal experience, find that peace, and then to be able to show up healthily and relate to another person, right? So for me, in my book, I talk about coming home to yourself, and for me that means, I say world peace begins inside of you.
Mhm.
We become so externally driven, right? Not necessarily becoming, because when you really think about it, in collectivist cultures, and I do still consider Jamaica more collectivist compared to the US and like other Western cultures. I interviewed somebody recently, Jamaican, who studied in Korea, and she said compared to South Korea and Jamaica, she thinks Jamaica is more individualistic. And I can see that it probably influenced by the US. But I grew up in a large family. My dad is one of 11, mom is one of 12. So tons of cousins and community and people everywhere. So, you were always raised to look out for everybody else, your community. There's really no strong sense of self. You're going to school, you're studying, and people know you as Simone, but there's just sort of an innateness about just looking out for everybody else. And I remember, even after moving here, just I was so concerned about cousins and friends and everybody. And I had to learn this whole thing called boundary. That was a new thing for me back in like 2013. I was continuing behaving as if I were living in a communal setting where everybody is looking out for everybody. But when you're living in an individualistic culture,
Mhm.
it's the what's in it for me. Everybody just come and them take and them take and them take. And if
Mhm.
you don't really make sure that you are fill up your tank, guess
Mhm.
what? You're well a go run drying up.
Mhm.
And if and so the type of personalities that exist in this culture, if you don't make sure that you are responsible for self-care and filling up your own time, you better know, say you're gonna get to burnout Every minute you're in a burnout because you're constantly just putting out, because that's who you are. You're just, it's about community. We're big about community. So I had to learn to balance that, right? And so a lot of times, a lot about the mental health and the effects that are going through, you're not even having the language, but you need to come home and, you have to find that peace within you first. Right? The world peace really does start within you. You cannot give what you don't have. And the turmoil of disorientation and culture shock and everything else, you just don't feel like yourself no more. You have to really get a hold of what's going on inside of you first. Set healthy boundaries. Because no, listen, you're living in a context where you might be married, you're a working professional, you're raising children. There's so much that's in that. You're no longer living in the midst of a community where you have mom and dad next door, uncle down the road, some cousins who can babysit. You're a chef, you're a chauffeur, you are financier, you're doing everything. And so you have to have some healthy boundaries. I think I actually lost track of the question, to be honest.
No
I
man,
hope
you're
I'm
going good.
answering it. I hope my
No man,
answer
you're
is
going
right.
good. You're going good.
But the mental health piece of it is really big, because I think a lot of people come in the US and them just, they want them want drive the Mercedes Benz or the Tesla or the Alfa Romeo, right? They might have the big house in a year or 5 years, and it take time. You have to know that these things take time to work at it, and a lot of the skills that you bring from your former culture will help you survive here, such as, in Jamaica, we have the whole partner thing where everybody pool their money together, and everybody, I mean, those skills and those types of operating, very vital in this culture, because you come and you get so strapped into the credit and you're spending outside of your means, over your budget. And before you know it, everybody have plans for your money and you don't have no plans for your money. And all you want to do is rent a car and put a picture up on Facebook, and everybody thinks they are live big and broad. But the reality is that you're broke. So, I am really big on coming home to you, finding that internal peace and balance, healthy boundaries, and recognizing what's going on at home first, right? And then we can start influencing, balancing your personal aspirations of whatever you feel like you want to achieve, being in this land of milk and honey. And then you can have social impact, right? And at sometimes, say, while you're climbing, you have to be pulling at the same time. We get that. But we have to find some balance and boundaries in there, because believe me, it can be overwhelming. And I've heard too many stories of people who come here, them work 2, 3, 4 jobs, and them send everything home. And sometimes literally them get sick and them just go home and them not even have help to enjoy all of them work for, right? Because of this big grandiose expectation from the community and everybody else. You live a foreign, where you complain about? What kind of burnout you talk about?
That's kind of why I wanted to ask. You said come home to yourself. I don't know. Could people know what that means? I mean, do you even know yourself? Because social media is now dictating what success looks like. And like you say, all of the fancy brand them where you just call are this. That's what it's saying is success or is attainable. So sometimes people can't even really tell really what coming home to self is, because there's so many things externally influencing what people think they want. And so do we really even know? Even me, me think me want a podcast, I have a
What?
podcast. You understand? Did I really want to start this? You understand? So it's like this idea of coming home to self. I like it, but that's where the work is, because you have to really start to break down what is it do I really want? And sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know, you know, because for such a long time you're going on this auto script that's been given to you, handed down, and you just feel like, and then, all these other things. So long story short, I think that makes sense, right? Working, because my question was, how do you work with clients? And based on the client, because a lot of this is social, socio-emotional, psychological, because depending on where they're coming from, coming here will impact them differently. So,
Yes. And there's different dynamics in each family structure.
mhm,
Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, as I have started to go through my own digging deeper in myself, I tell her there are books, so many books I can't stop writing. When you think about the positive and healthy sense of what exists in communal communities, but on the outside of that, the trauma
mhm,
and the dysfunctions and all of the bad stuff that happens in the silence that exists in some of these communities where things happen and people are not given the space to speak up because they might go shame this a person here, and all of the reasons why people are told not to speak up. I think America is the place where people come. You lose yourself to find yourself. That has been my journey, losing myself and then coming home and finally deciding, look here now, this is a part of the Jamaican culture, me not like it. Me I gonna leave this behind and me get the choice to do that. Look here now in the whether it's the family dynamic, the community dynamic, the friend dynamic, whatever dynamic, everybody come in whatever connections you have, you get the choice to say, look here now, this sort of dysfunction that exists with this person, I don't want it no more. It's harming me, it's causing me trauma, and I get to choose to love you from afar. That's where the boundaries come in because listen, you cannot be healthy and function and really serve and have community and social impact if you're not healthy. Right? Because the type of pressures that exist in America where you have to perform professionally, parenting, carry your house, and a lot of times you and your spouse are doing it all alone. So you have to have a certain level of stability and integrity, personal integrity. And that is the journey that you go on to say, me, I excavate some of them something here going to serve me. And I also get to choose some of the things from the Western or the individualistic culture and say, look here now, this whole idea of boundaries is very important. This idea of identity is important. This idea of self-care is important. This idea of me aspiring and achieving something to be fulfilled and healthy is important. As well as, me not go forget my community. Me know so there's needs there, but in me have to be able to have very strong personal integrity and stand in who I am and shine in who God made me to be and what my purpose here is. And in that is know what flows out of the cup is yours. Ian Levanzant said, what's in the cup is mine and what flows out of the cup is for everybody else. But I think when you come from collectivist cultures, that whole dynamic is like everything in the cup is everybody else. And there's a lot of dysfunctions that goes on with that. And I'm sure some people might disagree with me depending on where they are in their own journey. But listen, this is where I am. I have had to walk through some very challenging experiences where I'm crippled. I can't get out of bed. Trying to seek validation, the people pleasing. And some of them not care. They want you to continue to play the role that you've always played in that whatever community or setting you're coming from. They want you to, and some of them are abusive. Some of them take advantage of our hard work here when we're overseas. The amount of stories people will tell you just so them can get money. The lies and the stuff. I'm say, but you not care about me. Me they here and I'm struggling to make sure all the bills that me have to take care of paying my own house. You take the money and go buy iPhone and me not even have iPhone. You want me to buy you name brand something and me I buy the brandless something so me can save up and be able to have social impact and give back. But you want me to buy you name brand stuff. It's so much complexity in the experience of people who they are foreign and the expectations from everybody back home. I'm telling you, you do get to choose who become the person you're becoming, this hybrid, this third culture person. You get to decide what goes into that pot.
Yeah.
It's not passive. You have to be very active in working on yourself and going deep, deep, deep. And I'm telling you, it's not easy, because sometimes when you start changing, people not gonna like it,
Yeah.
because you're going to be becoming somebody and you're stepping out of the role that they've always known you to fit in, that keeps them comfortable
Yeah.
and keep you in a place that they can manipulate you however they want to manipulate you, or however it makes them feel comfortable. So people, you it's a journey. You got to be prepared. I've
Yeah.
gone on my own journey, and that's probably one of the most important thing that qualifies me to walk on the journey with another person, because I'm still on it. It's not easy, because
Yeah.
there's so many cultural expectations for people who come from other places and are now in the West, where the supposed abundance. But people don't understand, so we have to buy everything when we eat.
Yeah.
We can't go outside and go pick a mango.
Listen, I cannot go to Miss Simone yard and say, Miss Simone, hey, the breadfruit they look like it good, it turn, you can't pick the breadfruit, so me can't go roast it. Yes, right? Or oi, Miss Simone, me see two aki on the tree, me can't get the aki them. Like
Right? A
none
mango
of
season in Jamaica now.
that. Me tell
You
you,
walk past somebody mango and the mango them just a
just a
drop
drop.
off.
Me know.
And you just pick some and them not have no problem with it.
Yeah,
It's a
cause
different world here.
yeah,
So you have to adapt to your new environment and now devise a new plan for you to be healthy, so that you in turn can be healthy and strong in integrity for everybody else who are depend upon you, right?
yeah,
Because not everybody not gonna get to come here. And the reality that and I encourage some people who are overseas, consider, if you have psychological safety in Jamaica or some other place where you're from, daydreaming about being in America is not for the weak.
mm.
It's not for the weak. And people think so they won't come here. So there's a Jamaican girl online who talk about when she go to the store, them tell her she can get cash back on her card. And she said, oh, I saw people get rich. You never see it. You never see it. I was cracking up because people come and they don't understand the way the system works. I'm serious. This is complexity.
Yeah,
And it takes us who've walked the journey to help people to unravel it, to decode it, to make healthier decisions so that they can leave a legacy for people coming behind them, or even impact other people who are looking to them. Because one of my guests on the podcast said, listen, she said she come over on a plane and she don't want to go back on a boat. So if you don't have a plan for your money when you come in, you can stay there, go buy the rent, the Mercedes, and living at a big house and do it in debt. And you spend 20, 30 years at payback how many times over, and you end up with nothing saved up. So you have to be smart about this. But listen, let's continue the conversation because it's so needed. And you know that there's so much that's taboo in our cultures, that people just, everybody just come and them smile, likes everything all right. But deep down, so people in a pain and them scared for talk and said, no, you can't behave that way. It'll hurt me.
yeah.
You can't carry on that way there.
Simone, you've covered so much, right? Our respective work is complementary, but handling so many things. So, like we talked about the starting points, depending on the age you come, it's going to impact your journey. You talked about, your identity will shift. That's the point. That's okay, right? If you live here for a certain time, it's going to evolve, it's going to change your connection to culture. You talked about, and I will send you the newsletter, because I promise you a lot of things. I sent a newsletter a couple weeks ago, and I asked people, what aspects of your culture are you leaving behind? Some of it was keeping up with music, and some of it is like some of these behaviors that you talked about. We don't want to do that. We don't want to keep up with it again, right? So there are aspects of that as you mature, as you navigate, as you become a parent, and all of these things. Your perspective is going to change. You talked about work. That's one of the big things. Culture impacts how we show up at work. And then there are aspects that I identify that you talked about, which I totally believe that we should go into this transnational finance and supporting people in multiple locations and all the burdens and the pressures that come with that. A friend of mine, Mikey T, he has a short out called Beg You a Call, and it was around the story of, getting phone calls, this have to pay for, this need to do, and all of that. And it made me take a step back and say, before I came to America, was I such a nuisance to my uncles when I first came, before I came here? So, and the pressures that they have to face, because when rent due, rent due. You understand? JPS might take a week to come cut off the light. You know, over here is immediate. You
Yes,
understand?
it's true. It's true.
So, all of these things. So we definitely should continue the conversation. Before we end, because we're gonna have a little labrish after. Do you have a hope for the future? Is there, we came up here in the last 20 to 30 years, right? Because maybe 30 plus years. Anybody coming now, do you feel like there's hope for them having a better chance of navigating the immigrant identity and the experience versus when we came here 20, 30 years ago?
Mm. Well, you know what? There's hope for the fact that there's me and you, if nothing else.
Boom. See it there? See it there? They have guide now. We never have guide. So we
We never
become the
have the
Sherpas.
guide.
Yeah.
And our parents, them did I try for them, they came older. And they have mouths to feed. They've never had the luxury to go study and read and do all of them, something that we've been fortunate to do. So I count it a privilege.
Yes.
A privilege to be in this position, to have experienced this, to decode it. It was part of what was meant to happen. But we are here, we are on the air, there's social media, we have podcasts, we're getting the word out there. And there's actually a few other people that I know who have different angles of this, focusing corporate. Immigrants in corporate is one that comes to mind. Immigrant finance, a few other people, right? I've gained so many resources of books on my shelf here, of people who've mailed me books. And people who've said, "Oh, Simone, since I've been on your podcast, you've inspired me to kind of look at our community as immigrants and what angle I can be of support to our community." And so it's growing. So it's not going to be as hard. All we need to do is to get the word out and make sure that people in other places are able to access and hear the conversations. But unfortunately, no, there's hope. It's not unfortunately. There is a lot of hope because of these platforms, social media, and everything that we are now able to do that generations before were not. And, when I think about, I watched Marcus Garvey's story on YouTube, and then I went to a presentation in downtown Atlanta a month or two ago about his life story. And to think he came over on a ship and the amazing galvanization that he was able to do without social media and some of the tools that we had, and the amount of impact and influence and legacy that he has left. Listen, there's so much hope and information, the age of information, and just so much experience to share. So let's carry on, friends, right?
Yes.
And keep sharing and talking and letting people know that it's okay to let that little light, that little hole there that just hurt. I know why when somebody says something, it just feel right in your body. You just know there's something off. It touch you at a tender spot, and you may get anger afterwards. You might feel all sorts of other emotions coming up, and you can't figure out why this touched me so. You know what I mean? I'm just so moved by this because I feel like there is so much healing that is happening with the work that we're doing. There's so much hope moving forward. And I'm so energized to continue to learn more, to have more conversations, to do more research, and to help people come home to themselves, to heal, to embrace their superpower of being a third culture person, and to help those going on the journey afresh.
Yeah.
They might be able to do it in way faster times than
time.
you and I were, you know?
Yeah.
They don't have
Absolutely.
to go through all of them pitfalls that we and the mistakes that we made. And I've always wanted to do kind of something we'll talk about really kind of dramatizing, acting out. Like if you find yourself in this scenario at work, these are ways that you could respond, phrases
Simone,
that you could use.
may I not
We
the
have the
same
same
something.
brain.
Listen, couple years ago, they had this thing where, and I posted it on social. Like I was going to do like Caribbean in corporate, right? Where the co-worker come with the fish and a warm up, and we have to say how we gonna act it out to tell the co-worker say, my girl, me know say the steamed fish did nice to dinner, but no bring it in here. So don't do it. Don't, like
Yes.
if somebody said something to you and you want to respond, and in my mind, your mind is saying all of the things, all of the story you want to say, and then you cut to what you're actually supposed to say in that
Yes.
scenario. And it's a form of like you said, they're examples. Nobody's not really catering to us this way, and so sometimes we have to give people the tools to say, okay, while you want to tell them about the what's it not, let us not use that and calm down. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I mean, a lot of synergies in the work that we do. And so I'm really excited that, you're doing this work for immigrants broadly. Me, I focus probably Caribbean people, which is again so complementary. And I know that it is a reason why we find each other and we're having this conversation. So before we go elaborate a little bit more, tell the people them where they could find you on the internet and how to connect with you.
Sure. Thank you for the exposure and all, and opening up your space. I much appreciate it. So you can find me on LinkedIn, right under my namesake here, Simone W. Johnson Smith. Find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, TikTok. It's the Immigrant Experience Podcast. Just search, you'll find me there. And then on YouTube, same Immigrant Experience Podcast. You can find our page on YouTube. And we have our business website. It's thebridgeconcepts.org, where you'll find all of our everything, our course, coaching. My book is available online, everywhere books are sold online. And sign up for my newsletter. I have a free guide on there that talks about finding belonging as an immigrant and what's that like, because it's a big deal, not fitting in and just feeling like you don't know what your identity is anymore. It's a big deal. So check out the guide and get some insight. Sign up for the newsletter. We do a weekly newsletter. So again, thebridgeconcepts.org, and you'll find us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and I'm always on LinkedIn more than any place, but we need some more hands. The thing I grew, I need some more hands. I don't know how I'm going to keep up with all of this, right? And still working full time with a family. So if anybody interested and you're really passionate about this type of work, listen, let's collaborate with Kerry-Ann, figure out a way how we can spread the word, because people need this information. It's so important.
Yes, it is. All right. And so I'll make sure I put Simone's information in the show notes. Me and Argo still labrish for a little bit. You could join our community and hear the after show. But for right now, until next time, walk good.
We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.